Right here.
Might need a clicker. That will help. Awesome. Wonderful. So first off, Congressman Cicciolini is, I think, doing a great service here. I don't know how many congressional hearings y'all have listened to. I have not listened to very many. I still found that those questions I thought were incredibly pointed, smart, accurate. Maybe some politicians are quite good at their jobs. This gave me hope for the American public, right? I mean, you listen to him and he's talking about exactly the things that I think all of us are worried about, which is essentially that Google favoring their own properties, building their own businesses on the back of the monopoly they already have in search is removing or has the potential to remove a tremendous amount of opportunity for entrepreneurs, for small businesses, for big businesses, for all of us, right? Once Google is the way that consumers get to things, that becomes pretty challenging. So today, what I'm going to do is tell you 6 stories. And many of these are fairly high level, but what I'm going to try and do with each one is relate it back to work that we do in our jobs as marketing professionals. So I want this not only to be potentially interesting and informative, but also actionable. And so I will give you some actionable stuff. What I won't give you is, okay, here's a spreadsheet that you should dump your screaming frog files into to crawl. I'm going to save that for other presenters and other folks and speak at a little more strategic level. So let's start with a story about how we use the web. And in fact, technology as a whole. I think it pays, as someone who plays in technology, to understand the sphere, especially when you see a lot of speculative pieces about the danger and future of new technologies and how disruptive or not they really will be. So, some of you in the room who joined me in middle age will remember 1981. 2001, right? I remember television was going to be killed by the internet, right? Surely you remember all the pieces around that. Apps, I don't know, just a few years ago, every event that I went to, there were session after session about how mobile apps will kill the web, and so apps are what we all need to build. All right. And then mobile was going to kill desktop. Let's see how that played out. Voice search now, I think, right, the 2019 thing is voice search will destroy web search. Of course it will. That sounds credible. Let's take a look. So here we go. This is video killing the radio star, except there are more people listening to radio and radio-style content, thanks to podcasts, than ever before. Radio is more popular in the age of the internet than it was prior to it. Television versus mobile devices. Well, maybe mobile and desktop computers are indeed killing video. Maybe is that what's happening? No. It's just that we're shifting from one kind of screen to another kind of screen, which makes tons of sense. What are we doing on our mobile and desktop machines? We are watching TV, right? This is why, yeah. Here's desktop versus mobile and tablet share worldwide. I see something fascinating here. This is share. This is not ours. So when it looks like, although it does look like desktop's share of the market has gone down, when we look at actual hours of use per week, we are using desktops almost as much as we ever have. Mobile didn't cannibalize desktop, it just cannibalized all our free time. You see predictions like this, right? I think some of these were shown this morning, right? Predictions like 50% of all searches are going to be voice searches by 2020, or 30% of searches will be done without a screen by 2020. Man, they better get on that shit, because it is like 6 months away. Like you gotta really push it. It better be like a just crazy adoption. So one of the questions I ask myself around voice in particular is, what does voice search change? What is different? So I performed a few dozen, and Dr. Pete from my old company, Moz, performed many hundreds of voice queries and found basically whether you input via voice or you input with the keyboard on the screen or via an external keyboard, the results do not change. We were able to find, I think Brittany Muller from Moz was able to find one query once where the answer provided in the Google Search app or the Google Assistant was different than what was provided if you input with a keyboard. So that seems like no. That seems like that is not a big change. And why should it be? Why would Google present different results? If either it's the most relevant result or it's not, why would you change that based on voice versus keyboard input? I think what most people are talking about when they say voice search is going to transform the landscape, they don't mean voice search. They mean voice answers. They mean voice answers. But all the stats they use to scare us are voice search. This I have a fundamental problem with. I really, really dislike sort of creating this misplaced fear around something when it is not the truth, when it's not the reality, not the full story. So yeah, this changes a lot. I have seen no statistics to suggest, no credible statistics to suggest that this is a substantive portion of search. And so what I wanted to try and figure out using some data from a company based here in Silicon Valley, JumpShot, who collects clickstream level data from about 10 million devices in the United States and 100 million devices worldwide, both desktop and mobile devices. They basically look at everything that happens on all browsers in those devices, every URL that gets hit, right? So what we can see is Google search going down? So in browsers, the answer is very, very slightly. Search in browsers is going down very slightly, but it's pretty much plateaued. It is stable. Browser-based web usage, on the other hand, very, very close to its all-time highs in desktop, slightly down in mobile. Why is that? Because of apps, right? Essentially, the Google Search app and other apps like Facebook and Instagram, which have browsers built into them, are where the rest of that app activity is happening. By my estimate, there is actually more web usage today than there was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So despite all of these new technologies, all of these things that are supposed to cannibalize and kill, we are still seeing a ton of that. And by the way, Google is still sending the overwhelming majority of search traffic. I asked JumpShot for basically, hey, send me the top 250 referrers on the web that send out the most traffic to other places. What are they, and what % of traffic are they responsible for? There you go. Google sends out 2/3 of all of the internet's traffic. So, when the congressman is worried about, hey, are you going to remove value from the internet ecosystem, he's asking the right people. Well, I don't know if Mr. Cohen was actually qualified to be on that panel. I don't know if anybody saw the follow-up questions that Congressman Cicciolini's office sent to Google, but it was awesome, like so biting. I think it said something like, I don't know whether you intentionally sent a representative who was incompetent or whether you sent a representative who is incompetent strategically to avoid answering my questions, but don't do it again. It was like, ooh, yeah, get it. I don't know, yeah. Whether Google will actually respond, I don't know. So over the last 40 years, video definitely grew, but it didn't kill radio. TV is getting watched more, just in more places, more different kinds of places. In the last 12 years, desktop barely shrank while mobile grew massively. In the last 9 years, websites actually dominated apps, not the other way around, right? For anyone outside the top 25. And despite voice adoption, supposedly, which is going to be massive in 6 months, web search keeps growing. I think for us, for web marketers, this means a few important things. Both mobile and desktop are still big. And if you are building for mobile first, that's fine. If you are building for mobile only, that's probably a terrible idea. And I really worry about that. I don't know how many of you have visited a lot of websites that have the hamburger-style menus in a desktop experience. It is not easy to find things, right? If you're considering a big investment in voice answer SEO, unless you have a very sort of a product and a business that is closely connected to how home-based devices, right, assistant-based devices are being used, I would probably urge you to spend your time and energy in other places. I don't think that is the best use of your technology dollars. I don't think that's the best use of your marketing dollars. I think getting scared and worried about this stuff is illogical. I think it's going to be the same thing that it was about apps, which is there'll be 25, 30, 50 companies that'll do it really, really well. They'll have most of the market share around a lot of what these answer queries do. I don't know that they're going to get much value from that, because I think Google and Apple and Facebook and a few others and Amazon are going to take 99% of the value. Why would they give it to anybody else? But if you're outside of that group, invest in other things. And third, web-based video, podcasts, websites, those all continue to be excellent investments. Mobile apps, less so. So I worry about the sexy, hot, new thing. I think this is it's a dangerous game to play. All right, let's talk specifically about Congress. So in December of last year, Sundar Pichai, Google's, is Pichai the right way to say his last name? Pichai, thank you. So went in front of Congress and answered, that's probably not the right verb, spoke to a number of questions from members of Congress. Some of those questions then received follow-ups. Basically, members of Congress were able to submit, hey, Google, we would like to see answers to these specific questions. Some of those were pretty darn good, right? People ask, members of Congress asked questions like, what percentage of search engine result pages resulted in the user terminating their search because they were satisfied by the answer, clicking on a link which led the user to a web page not hosted on google.com, not owned by Alphabet, right? Clicking on a link which led to user being sent to a secondary page on something that was owned by Alphabet. These are smart questions. I think these are very fair, reasonable questions. And Google's answer was, oh, we don't know or measure those things. Maybe there is a world where that is technically accurate. Maybe Google was like, hey, we got these questions in Congress. Stop measuring it. Stop measuring it before they send the questions to us. I can imagine it, right? I could picture that. That seems reasonable. What's not reasonable is answering, oh, we don't have that. The only reasonable answer is, I'll go get it for you. You're the United States Congress. You were elected by the American people to keep monopolies in check, right? Well, to further commerce. We will go get that answer for you. That is the honest and transparent way to play it. And it really frustrates me that Google, just throughout this whole document, you can go read it on Scribd, answer after answer that is not... Possibly there is a generous way to interpret it as technically correct. There is no way to interpret it as transparent and wholly truthful. And that is truly frustrating. Because I think Google used to be a company like that. 10 years ago, I mean, Greg, maybe do you feel that way too, right? Like 10 years ago, I felt like Google was that company. They were the company who stood out from the pack. I don't know.
When there was Eric Schmidt and the creepy line stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the company has changed for sure.
Yeah, the culture to me feels different than it was 10 years ago, for sure.
Investor pressure to continue growing, and that's where a lot of this.
I think that is fair. That definitely public market investor pressure, to your point, yep. That is almost certainly driving some of this. I just don't know. I don't know whether if I was inside Google, I would believe that these types of answers are best serving my investors.
This is written by a lawyer.
This is definitely written by a lawyer. Okay, fine. If Google's CEO won't answer Congress's questions, I'll do it my damn self. So here you go. I think you showed these earlier today, right? So essentially, Q1 2019 searches that resulted in organic clicks, 41%. This is blended across desktop and mobile. Generally speaking, on desktop, you get more organic clicks. On mobile, you get fewer. No surprise. Paid, 3.58. Alphabet's clicks, double the paid clicks. Dang. These are going to things like YouTube and Google Maps and Google. The only one that is not, I think, totally fair that is included here is AMP URLs, because those sit on google.com. So I'm gonna try and reverse those out next time I do this study. They were not a large portion for reference. And zero clicks, 48.96%. I'll show you some more data on the zero click thing in a sec. Search traffic opportunity. So I tried to calculate essentially organic search clicks to non-Google sites. In pink, that's mobile. In blue, that's desktop. You can see over time, right? 2019, Google sent 20% fewer clicks, organic clicks, than they did in 2016. So web has grown, web use has grown, search use has grown, Google sending less clicks in browsers. Does the mobile app make up for that? Probably. I think probably it is the case that there's more than 20% growth in Google's mobile search app, meaning there's about the same amount of external flowing traffic from Google search to the rest of the internet. That's my personal guess. I don't have good data on that. JumpShot is actually working on getting me some app data that I hope to have in the next few months. So let's go way back to Q1 of 2016, right? 3+ years ago now. And you can see what searches with ad clicks looked like versus organic versus desktop. And then, right, so 26 organic clicks to every 1 paid click in the first quarter of 2016, which is huge, right? Like, oh my God, SEO is just 25 times bigger than paid. But if we take that out to today, right? This is Q2. I just got the Q2 numbers and put them in this last month, July. And Google in 2019, 11 organic clicks per every 1 paid click. So it's still an order of magnitude larger, but not the same scale as it was historically. Do you remember this? Google had that like very bad week in the stock market. This is 3 months ago now, right? Because basically the growth rate of Google's paid advertising revenue slowed down, right? And so, yeah, Greg, to your point around public markets, right, and investor pressure, this is bad. And of course, Bloomberg is doing the classic dick move with the axis here. I don't know if you can see that. It starts at 15 and goes to 24 to make it look like it's much worse than it actually is. So in April of 2019, if you were doing a search on your mobile device, this is what the ads would look like, right? They had a little green ad box. I wouldn't say they were clear, but they stood out, right? You could reasonably identify an ad. And so, right, in May, I think the end of May, last week of May, they made this change to the new black ad box, and they added mobile fave icons to all the other websites so that it is way harder to tell the difference, at least to my eye it was, between mobile organic results and mobile paid results. So wouldn't it be nice? Imagine if in your business you were like, wow, we had a slow quarter. Let's remove the little green box around the ad. That should give us 30% ad growth. Wow, that's a nice lever to be able to pull, right? And it sure did work. Look at that. 16% ad click-through rate growth in a month and a half. That's a lot of revenue, my friends. That is a lot of revenue. I don't know if you saw the latest numbers were just published, was it last week, whenever the earnings report came out? And yeah, investors are quite happy with that. Yeah. I think another question, right, that folks ask is sort of around this monopoly. Like, is Google truly a monopoly? And their answer in front of Congress a few, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, was basically, no, we're not a monopoly because visitors on the internet start their searches all over the place. If you go to Expedia, or you go to Zillow, or you go to, Moz.com and you look for information about real estate or SEO, right, in the case of Moz, then that's a competitor to Google, right? That should be considered a competitor to us, and therefore we don't have a monopoly. But in search, in web search, right, what any of us would reasonably consider search, they are absolutely dominating that market. As a result of this, I think not just Congress. There is a congressional investigation. There's also a Department of Justice investigation. During the Obama administration, I think anyone who's familiar with me knows that, generally speaking, I thought President Obama was a pretty good president. I have my issues with him. But one of my issues with him is I don't think he and his Justice Department were as, I think they were very cozy with technology companies like Google. Google in particular, they were very, very cozy with. And so despite the FTC investigation and finding, officials in that investigation in 2013, officials concluded that Google illegally scraped other websites' reviews and other information, passed off the content as its own, threatened to remove sites from its search engine if it couldn't scrape their content, barred advertisers from using data obtained from Google ad campaigns for ads on other search engines, stopped websites using its search results from doing business with rivals like Bing or Yahoo. That's us. That is us to whom they were doing this. And the FTC's recommendation was basically, we should take action, and it was shut down by the executive branch. Now, things are different. If you know me, I am not a fan at all of the current president. I don't think highly of him or his administration. However, I was pretty impressed to see what the Justice Department investigation was revealing. And I'm also, I have some bias here in that the Justice Department is chatting with me personally about some of this investigation stuff, I think based on some of the blog posts I wrote. So maybe more will come from that. I don't know that I have specific recommendations because I am not an attorney and I don't know how antitrust law should work, but I certainly think that some of those things are pretty sketch. This is a very reasonable one to go. Rand, fascinating, interesting. I learned a lot. Why do I care? How does this affect me in my marketing job right now? And I think it does. I think it significantly affects all of us because paid click-through rate is something we can all pay attention to. Basically, what you can see is a pattern. Every time Google changes it, the click-through rate leaps up and then it slowly declines over time, right? So organic investments over the next 3, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, however long it is until Google's next change, will probably improve, and then Google will change it again, right? Organic click-through rate is still high, but I think the most benefit is going to brands and companies and websites that can answer zero-click searches and benefit. That is a tough thing to do, but strategically speaking, I believe if you present a plan like that, and I'll talk a little more about zero-click searches in a minute, you can leapfrog a lot of your competition. And third, the Democratic primary, which is obviously going on right now, and the general election next year are likely to have a huge impact on Google's future and on all of our future. That is a weird statement for me to say. I cannot remember a time, at least a time when I was aware of that fact. Like I didn't think that, I don't know, I had lots of opinions on Clinton versus Trump, but none of them were, oh, it's probably the case that a Trump administration will more aggressively go after big tech than a Clinton administration would. Or obviously that's theoretical, I don't know. But I think the candidates in the Democratic primary right now are really showing their colors around this. So the current frontrunner is Joe Biden, right? And he's generally very cozy, just as his former administration was, with big tech, comparatively, right? And then you have candidates like Elizabeth Warren who sort of are like, I have a plan to break them up, which is very, very different. So I won't express my personal views on that front, but I think it is fascinating for all of us to follow and worthwhile for all of us to pay attention to. Let's get into the weeds a little more. Let's go a little more tactical. So here's a story about on SERP SEO. So there was this article published on Social Media Examiner by the founder, Michael Stelzner, I think is how his name's pronounced. And Mr. Stelzner basically talked about how Google search traffic is dying, it's going away completely. I know I just showed you data that that's not the case, but I'll show you why he believes it to be true. So he basically, his contention was, I rank number 3, Social Media Examiner, rank number 3 for social media. That's searched for millions of times, and look what you have to do to find my website. There's me 4 screens down in the number 3 organic ranking position. I think we've all had experiences like this, right? Oh, we got the number 2 ranking, the number 1 ranking. Why are we getting no clicks? Well, Google's got a lot of other stuff above us. And so he showed his Search Console, which is quite impressive. 1.43 million impressions across, what is that, 3 months? So yeah, that's a lot of searches, and he got 11,000 visits, which, I mean, man, I'd rather get on the front page of Hacker News, get more traffic than that. Yeah, so I get where Michael's coming from, and he is not alone. This is a Google Search Console screenshot shared by Lily Ray, an excellent SEO professional, and she noted that when they made this change, she didn't reveal the website, but when they made this change to add the FAQ schema to their page, right, essentially doing a thing that Google tells you is good, doing a thing that virtually every SEO professional would recommend, their traffic suffered dramatically. Even though the impressions went up, Google was able to use the schema information that was provided to answer the question, answer the searcher's query without providing any clicks or value to the site. That is troubling. Zero-click searches are absolutely on the rise, right? We can see that in June of this year, I just got this data from JumpShot a few weeks ago. In June of this year, zero-click searches, when blended mobile and desktop, crossed 50% for the first time. This is in browsers. It was almost certainly the case that that was probably true previously when you included app search, but I didn't have that data. And you know, you search for something like shrug emoji. I need this all the time. I don't know about you, but if I'm on Twitter and people send me stuff, I really like to use emojis to reply because they can just be interpreted wonderfully, right? So I need the little like guy going, I don't know. And what do? I search for it, I copy and paste, right? I just copy and paste. I don't have it hotkeyed. I know I should have it hotkeyed, but whatever, right? There's 10 blue links. Like this is not what most of us would think of as, oh, Google's taking all this value from it, right? There's a bunch of rich results. There's no rich results. This is 10 blue links, classic SEO, but it's really hard to earn ROI for this. Really hard, right? Versus something like this. This is a search for steak temperature medium, right? What is the medium steak temperature? And in this case, I am almost certainly going to use the featured snippet to answer my query without clicking through, but there's probably a tremendous amount of brand value for someone like Buy Thermo Pro to outrank Heb here and take that listing. Because as we all know, searcher journeys have brand associations with them, and when content is provided and names are given to us and we see domain names and brand names over and over again, like television commercials we barely pay attention to, but that end up influencing our purchasing behavior, same story here. So I think that we should be asking ourselves the question in this format, using this type of decision tree structure, essentially. Can I benefit from ranking for this query, whatever the keyword term or phrase is, or the sets of, even without traffic? And if the answer is no, fine. Okay, if you can't benefit from it, go optimize for other keywords. If you can, I think you have to ask one more question. Will your team care? Will they give you credit and value from it? Because if they won't, well, go for the keywords that send you traffic, right? If your boss, your company, your client, if you're in the consulting world, refuses to credit you for value that you are driving, even though it drives no visits, go for other keywords. But if the answer is yes, then you should go invest in OnSERP SEO, right? You should go for the value that Thermo Pro could get from answering steak temperature grilling guides, right? What about structured data, right? Like the FAQ schema that Lily Ray added to her client site. So I think the question there is, will I gain or lose value from adding structured data that Google may use in an answer box? And there, it's a different equation. If you're going to gain value, obviously do it. If you're going to lose value, the next question is, would I rather have it or cede it to a competitor? Because this is a prisoner's dilemma situation, right? If you don't take it, one of your competitors almost certainly will take that opportunity instead. And so then the question to your boss or team becomes, yes, we may lose traffic from it. Would you like to get the traffic that will still go to it? Or do you want someone else to get it? Right? And if you'd rather have it, then you should add the structured data and optimize for it. And if you're okay with seeding it, fine, go after other keyword opportunities. Okay, we're gonna get into something very heavy, and I will try not to get too emotional, even though it is super emotional. So you are probably familiar with the shooting at Newtown Elementary, the Sandy Hook shooting where, where a guy killed, I think it was 26 teachers and children, young children, with an automatic weapon after killing his mother. And this event, I mean, there have been so many since that it's hard to say it's unparalleled in its tragedy, but it is so hard. It is so hard for me to picture how that happened and then how this country did nothing about it. But I will say Google, to its credit, recognized that this was a truly problematic issue, especially because in a nightmare scenario, it kept happening again and again. And because of these mass shootings and these tragic events, and the fact that Google kept seeing misinformation, horrible misinformation, conspiracy theory, whatever the motivation behind it was, political or otherwise, this misinformation was so terrible that Google essentially said, we are going to tweak our algorithm around these types of events specifically so that we increase our notions of authority. We increase the weight of authority in our rankings so we surface high quality content rather than misinformation. Because misinformation, in the case of Sandy Hook and many others, I don't know if many of you are familiar, but in the case of the Sandy Hook elementary shooting, there was a large a large troubled group of people who attempted to say that it was a false flag operation, right? That there was a conspiracy theory that was promoted by a number of people saying that this never happened. Your children did not exist. You are all actors. This was completely fake. And those results ranked very highly on Google because they earned the kinds of signals that Google, generally speaking, looks for, right? They earned a lot of links from people who agreed with them and many, many who disagreed with them, and many news organizations that covered the fact that there was this insane shit happening, right? And so because of these things, these results were ranked highly in Google, and so Google has this notion, right, that we should change these types of results. And today, if you search for Sandy Hook shooting, I went to the last page of results and could not find a result suggesting that the conspiracy theory was true. That is extraordinarily different than it was a year ago, and in the many years between the event and now. And that makes me feel good. That makes me feel like Google is doing the responsible and right thing. Unfortunately, Google has gotten a bunch of shitty criticism for doing this from certain other politically motivated outlets, right? Saying that they are not, that they are censoring information, right? I agree, they are censoring something. It's not information, it is misinformation that they are censoring. You can see them doing this in other sectors as well. So if you search for, other crazy conspiracy theories like, does the measles vaccination cause autism, right? Which, unfortunately, in my home state of Washington, we had a crazy outbreak because of, this anti-vax information going around. And of course, it's particularly problematic for immunocompromised children who can't get vaccinated and need herd immunity to stay protected. You can see this for another one. Is the Earth flat? This has been spiking. You know what I want? I want a future where we laugh just as hard about the anti-vax and the Sandy Hook shooting as we do about the is Earth flat. I know it seems like I've been in a plane. I can tell that the Earth is not flat. But, so the fascinating side note, you can Google this if you want, but the growth of the flat Earth movement, like the people who believe that the Earth is flat, has skyrocketed in the last 5 years primarily attributable to a tweak in YouTube's recommendation algorithm. So basically, there's this strong correlation between YouTube recommending that you watch these flat Earth videos and people starting to believe it. So I know we all feel like we're smart, intelligent people. If I see an insane thing on YouTube, I'm not going to suddenly change my mind and believe that. That's what you think, but not so much, right? And so this is what's going on in the search results, right? Sites like this alternative, I don't even know what to call it, quackery, right? Recommending all sorts of insane things. Oh, my favorite, I know I'm short on time, but I have to tell you this story about Mercado.com. So Cyrus Shepard tweeted this, and I was like, oh, I don't know anything about the site. I've never visited it before. So I looked it up and was trying to see like what kind of claims does Mercado.com make? Sorry, Mercola.com. And the doctor behind it, one of his chief claims is that vitamin D, which you get from, you have it in your body, but then you need sunlight to process it, right? So Seattleites are notoriously low on vitamin D. But he makes the claim that you can't take a shower after you go out in the sun because you'll wash all the vitamin D off your skin. And so there were all these health cases reported of parents who didn't let their kids wash up and then they got infections, right? And then this website had and the doctor behind it had like this settlement with the, I can't remember, attorney general for whichever state it was from. Fascinating stuff, but definitely does not deserve to rank at the top of Google, right? Provides bad information. And so I think a question in the past that we would ask, right, is this ranking because it has the right links? Does it rank because it best satisfies searchers? Does it have the best on-page SEO? Does it have the most accurate info? Is it structuring information correctly? Does it come from a trusted source? And it feels like the last few months, if you've been watching the SEO sphere, that these two, that comes from a trusted source and has the most accurate information, that those ranking factors are on the rise, especially in areas that Google calls YMYL, your money or your life. However, I am seeing it in more places and have some evidence to back that up that I'll be showing in the future. So we may be moving from a world where links and clicks and keywords are sort of combining with accuracy and comprehensiveness. Generally speaking, I think this is how Google thinks of it. I don't know if this is exactly how it's programmed in the algorithm, but I think this is a reasonable model for us to think of it, which is if the weighting of correctness and accuracy of authority, right, there's no particularly right or dangerous answer, then they don't need that authority correctness to be all that high, right? It doesn't need to be weighted that highly in the ranking system. But if the answer is the wrong answer could cause serious harm, it does need to be weighted quite high. And many of the folks in this room are in sectors like hospitality, transportation, banking, right? These absolutely would cross the middle of this line, in my opinion. Some of them are almost certainly on the far right side, right? So are vaccines safe? Very, very important query to provide accurate, comprehensive, authoritative information. Homeopathic cancer cures, another one, right? Best Star Wars movie, meh. Like if somebody says Empire and somebody's like, no, it's Force Awakens, you're not gonna be that hurt. You're gonna be fine, right? You'll be okay. Capybara memes, they're all adorable. It doesn't matter which one you see. They're great. Any answer is good. All right. This impacts us because authority, accuracy, and comprehensiveness may be coming soon to a SERP near you, right? To a SERP that you care about, to a keyword phrase. And so, right, I think that establishing your site as an authority, either by earning links, and I say links, but I also believe that Google, in these cases of authority, cares also about brand mentions and co-citation, right? If you are consistently mentioned by members of Congress, right? If you're a brand to talk about there, that is a signal of authority, whether they link to you from DOJ.gov or Congress.gov or not, right? That is a signal of authority that Google probably is going to be counting, right? That can have immense ranking benefits. Improving your content accuracy, meaning not just that it is truthful, but also that it's the most up-to-date, right? Comprehensive and correct can boost your rankings as well. That's kind of different from years past. And being at the cutting edge of a topic, I think, is a really interesting question right now, especially for folks in YMYL. So cutting edge medical science has one study showing that, you know, a certain thing could cause a certain condition. Well, maybe you'll rank for it, maybe you won't, right? Unless the news media sort of covers it and it gets popular, it is very possible that being on the bleeding edge of something, as opposed to in the authoritative consensus of a topic, could hurt your rankings. Brief story about who gets credit. Can I ask a quick question? If I had to go over time, would you say I have a few minutes? All right, excellent, wonderful. No, I want to make sure I respect the, yeah. As long as you're all getting value from it, but you know. Okay, all right, okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about who gets credit in Google's system and how that can also affect you. So this is a website called Celebrity Net Worth. Its founder, Celebrity Net Worth's founder, Adam, I can't remember his last name right now, but he was one of the folks called to testify in front of Congress a few weeks ago on this whole, you know, is Google a monopoly and anti-competitive practices. So brief story here is basically that Google contacted Celebrity Net Worth, which is a website that does exactly what it sounds like. They go out and they try and figure out through bank records and all these other kinds of things, how much is, you know, celebrity X worth, right? And they then provide that information along with some citation of their sources. They do a pretty reasonable job. There was a ton of search demand around this. They entered that market. They were crushing it, right? They did it extraordinarily well in the rankings. Someone from Google reached out, said, hey, we would love for you to provide your celebrity net worth. We get a lot of queries like this, asking how much celebrities are worth. We would like for you to provide your data to us in this structured format. And then we will show you and have a little, you know, credit for an instant answer. And the founders talked about it, and they came to the realization, they're like, no, this is a terrible deal for us. We should not do this. Google will not provide us value. They will send us fewer clicks, and the only way we can really monetize is through clicks. Us having our brand name in there is not helpful for our business. What did Google do? They did it anyway, that's right. They scraped their site, took it anyway, put it into their own rich format, put the results in there. And do you know how Celebrity Net Worth caught them? They put in a bunch of the founders' friends, personal friends, fake numbers, right? And then when you Googled the founders' friends, you would see the same, you know, oh yeah, he's worth $11,612. How did that happen? There you go. So I think they brought this story to the Outline, who published it, and Google's response was, what are you going to do? Like you can no index, just no index. We'll just take you out of the index. That's fine. Rock in a hard place, my friends. The Wall Street Journal wrote about another incident of this happening just a couple months ago. This is a lyrics website called Genius.com, based here in Silicon Valley, or maybe San Francisco. And Genius essentially was seeing the same thing, right? That Google was scraping their results, not giving them credit, using their songs. And so they did a very clever thing. They took Google denied this, right? And Genius.com took the songs that they had in their database and they changed the format of the apostrophes in those song lyrics. They changed them such that there was straight apostrophes and curly apostrophes, and they used those in this fashion to create Morse code spelling out red-handed. Right? Can you imagine being on that SEO team? Right? Like, how amazing is it when they're like, yeah, Google's definitely stealing this. All right, well, what do you want us to do? I want you to inject Morse code in the apostrophes. You put that on your resume and, just the world is your oyster in the SEO realm, right? So here you go, right? A week after the story broke by the Wall Street Journal, Google started citing where they were getting lyrics from. They claimed they were buying them from third parties, right? And that, no, this is the third party who's scraping Genius and then selling the lyric data to us. But now Google provides which third-party provider. So now Genius, if they want, they can go to every one of these places and say, hey, we know you're scraping us, quit it or pay us or whatever it is, right? So this, I think, is awesome, right? They made a similar change in images. Do you remember prior to the Getty Images situation, when you clicked on an image, it would take you directly to the image file itself rather than to the web page? Which was really tough for folks who got value from Google Images. They changed that as well. They added links in knowledge panels and these extra, this was a while ago, right? But the extra URLs in the featured snippet when they used an image that was not from the same source. So Google has been changing its behavior when they've been called out critically or sued or talked about in the press. They have changed, and that has brought a bunch of value back to publishers and content creators. And this impacts us because if Google is using your work in a way without credit, without citing you, the press can be a powerful ally. These changes have been pretty consistent the last couple of years where Google is actually changing. I think the Department of Justice investigation, means that investigators are looking very closely for examples of this kind of behavior where Google is taking advantage of businesses, and therefore there has never been a better time to be vocal. And if you or a business close to you, connected to you, is having trouble figuring out, hey, who are the reporters I should talk to, please feel free to email me and I will connect you with them because they have all reached out to me after some of the blog posts. When Google does return link credit to search results of all different kinds, suddenly a bunch of SEO opportunity exists that previously was underinvested in, and your competitors may have given up on it. And so when you see things like, especially the images in the SERPs or the images in the featured snippets, those kinds of things, that is opportunity for you to invest without as much competitive pressure, usually at least for the first year or two, and reap rewards. All right, my I think penultimate story here about engagement. So we're gonna talk a little bit about social media. I'll tell you why, but you have probably seen studies like this, from this one's from Rival IQ showing average engagement rates for organic reach, So if you're a brand, you're posting on your Facebook page, you're posting on Twitter, average Facebook engagement 0.09% for brand pages with more than 10,000 fans. 0.09%? That sounds like 9 people will see my Facebook post. I'm pretty sure I could yell out my office window and do better. Instagram, Instagram is the highest performing of all the social media channels for brand, and it is 1.73%, which is a quarter of the rates we were complaining about from Facebook 4 or 5 years ago. And it's trending down, This is definitely going down. What's working instead is a few pieces of viral content that tend to sail across the web and social media. And I think it's fair to ask, okay, Rand, I do SEO. Why do I care so much about what's working in social, what's getting traction in social? And the answer is content that earns traction across these networks, is what high influence accounts amplify. It's what gets searched for. It's what bloggers write about. It's what the press picks up and journalists write about. It's what earns links. It's what gets cited. And it's what tends to rank in Google. This is why the correlation with Facebook shares or tweets or all these other social media metrics are as high as they are, almost as high as they are for links and linking root domains, So I'm not saying, I don't think Google is looking and going, well, it's got a bunch of Facebook shares, let's put it at the top. I think the same signals that make something do well in social often make that thing do well in search, And virtually every brand cares about that. Now, the way these social media companies are working is not the way it used to be, Twitter has been very public about this. They've said, we have a relevance model. The model score predicts how interesting and engaging a tweet is to you. That's how we decide what to show you. Instagram, exactly the same, Instagram works exactly the same and says that. The thing they show you at top, So this is my feed. This is the tweet that the algo thinks will be most engaging to me. This is what they think will be second most engaging to me. This is what they think will be third most engaging to me, et cetera, et cetera. Same is true for you, For all of us. And right, they think this Megan Rapinoe video is gonna catch my eye. They were correct. I watched it for like 4 minutes. And I had already seen it. I don't know, she's just so amazing, you know? It's kind of, and it thinks that these images will keep me in the app. I really care about men's haircuts and adorable cartoon characters, apparently. This is how YouTube decides what to feature next, right, in the recommendation system. This is how Facebook decides what to show in your feed. It is not classic amplification, like I retweeted this, I shared this. It's what does the algorithm think will earn your engagement? And these are designed to create addiction, right? That's their whole goal. They need all of us to pay as much attention as possible. They need time on site to go up. That's the metric they care about. And it can have some nasty side effects. For sure it can, right? So here is a post that my wife Geraldine put up a few weeks ago. It's a delightful post. She wrote about her 10-year blogging anniversary. Delightful, it was fun, and it was entertaining. It did okay. And it got a wonderful comment from our friend Christy Morrison, which is awesome. That's great. Those don't create engagement, right? Twitter's algorithm knows, yeah, that this is not going to make Geraldine log back in and be like, ooh, did anyone else reply? But conversely, I don't know if anyone saw this tweet from Geraldine. It, I don't know, got like 50,000 retweets, including by a bunch of people in the Marvel comic universe, which meant that her mentions were filled with hot garbage. It's really weird, right? If one person calls someone you love the C word, you get real mad, right? You hate that person, like you kind of, who are they? I'm going after them. What do you do if 1,000 people an hour call the person you love the C word? I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's overwhelming. I can't deal with it. Like it's unhandleable. We just kind of hug each other and go to sleep and try not to check Twitter. It sucks. It's real weird, but they know it creates engagement. In fact, what Twitter learned, what folks who've been studying Twitter have learned is that if you see content that you hate, especially if you don't follow very many people and don't have very many followers, you will engage more with that. You will send angry comments. Those angry comments look to Twitter like engagement. The algorithm's working, and so it optimizes for it. That is a real tough situation. This is also true to a lesser extent on Instagram and Facebook, both of which have been trying to combat it more heavily. It's very true on YouTube, which has been working somewhat to combat it. But basically, you know, a few years ago, the things that got you social reach were shares and retweets and likes and views and embeds, right? And the thing that gets you social reach in 2019 is whatever the ML system has found to correlate strongly with engagement. Right? Really different world. And so it's changed from things like retweets and likes to comments and clicks. One of the fascinating things I found in my research with influencer marketers, influencer marketing folks, is that they no longer ask each other to go like each other's Instagram posts. They ask for the comment. Right? They'll go on an app like Telegram, they'll have a big private group, they'll ask everyone in their Telegram group to go comment on my post, not go like my post, because comments look to Instagram like more engagement. And so this impacts you because if you want to get all these benefits from social, right, links and amplification and the branded search demand and the diversity of traffic and the subscribers who will sign up for your content, you basically have to win on these social platforms by playing to this algorithmic bias for on-site engagement, which is very different from driving traffic from these sites back to your own site, right? You want to build up high engagement streaks and then spend some of that engagement streak, that algorithmic benefit that you've got, to earn value back to you. Make sense? Photos good? All right. So I think the future of SEO is going to be a return to less trackable marketing, including absolutely zero-click searches. We've got a vastly, vastly bigger and more competitive industry than ever before. Look at that. 2015, I recorded how many LinkedIn profiles said they did SEO and how many in 2019. That is 470% increase in 5 years. That is wild, so wild. A lot of that is not just competition, but more sophistication as well. We're also going to a world with more searches, but fewer organic clicks, and a shift, as always, a shift in ranking signals. And for those of us who can keep up, who can manage the tactical, right, our tactical effectiveness. Oh, sorry, did you want to? I'll just Vanna White it. Right? Maybe I'm Charlie here, but right, I think that for those of us who can keep up, this is going to be a very exciting phase, a very opportunity-laden phase, but a different phase than what we've had in the past. But you can do it. Thank you very much.